So I say celebrate the decision, not the outcome. Anytime we make a great decision was to shoot because you had space. If you airball, you airball it, right? Like celebrate the decision, not the outcome. So we got to celebrate the good decisions because the more good decisions we make, obviously as we get better throughout the year with our practice design and practice, we're going to start, right? We're going to be on the right. If we're making the good decisions and not so caught up in the outcome, if you're so outcome based, right, that's just not a great culture. It's the day to day, and it's hard to build that if you're just always worried about the outcome.
Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Today we're joined by contemporary basketball coach and consultant, Jon Beck. Coach Beck has coached thousands of boys and girls in youth, middle, high school, and select basketball over his lengthy coaching career. He trained at Nike Skills Clinics as well as Pure Sweat Clinics and Coaches Academies. During his 20-plus years as a coach, Coach Beck and his teams have had many accomplishments and achievements, including over 500 wins, 10 straight district championships, 5 regional championships, 4 state tournament appearances, as well as helping hundreds of boys and girls receive college scholarships from every level. To learn more about Coach Beck's training methods, check out his website, jonbeckbasketball.com. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast. Coaches, the JAMODI Podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Coach, I want to thank you so much for giving up your time, coming on here, talking hoops with me. You're a person that I follow on Twitter, and I've just really appreciated the things that you post out there. And that's what I love about the basketball community and social media. Sometimes they can bring people together that you and I really would probably not cross paths except for that. So I just want to say thank you so much for this time.
Thank you for having the opportunity to come and do it. And I think we're close to the same age. You played college basketball?
I did at Baylor. You were at Arkansas State from 99 to 2003. I was 2000, 2004. When I saw those dates, I was like, oh man, yeah, we had crossover for sure during that time.
Yeah. And I was the graduate assistant coach at Arkansas State till 2007. And so I played there, but then I took my 5th year. I changed majors, and then I went 2 years of grad school as a grad assistant. So I was involved in the D1 thing for a while. But man, it was awesome. And think you played professionally as well?
Just 1 year in Iceland. Moved coffee grounds from one truck to another one Saturday morning to make some extra money while I was there. So if we can call it that, then yes, I did. You're at the same place for, what is that, almost 8 years? How was that?
7 years. And what's funny is I was offered to play overseas in Iceland. I had a contract in front of me and almost took it. But that time, it was a scary time with 9/11.
Yep. Yeah.
It was almost like all the lands, Finland, Greenland, Iceland. I had opportunities to go play over, and ended up just being, I just thought, man, I'm going to be a better coach than I was a player. And
you were wise. I went over there and had a great time. Awesome people. The basketball was good, but coming from Big 12 for 4 years, I wasn't really much of a scorer at Baylor, but I could do some things over there, and so I was having a lot of fun. Unfortunately, my off-court habits carried me or followed me over there and were the reason why I was asked to leave the country, but had a great experience for the short time I was there.
That's still, though, it's a small world. We could have been teammates over there.
That would have been nuts. Yeah, how about it, though, if you would have played over there and then we crossed back, and then we're on this call 20 years later kind of looking at each other like, hey, were you in Yardvik? Coach, we already talked a little bit about your playing career and how we were kind of playing college basketball around the same time, but then you've had just an incredible path of 20 plus years of coaching at the high school level, super successful, and then even into the Pure Sweat world, which
I'm a huge fan of that curriculum too. A lot of that stuff shows up in our workouts at Faith. You get to be around such high achievers, but I think for you to do the things you've done, I'm interested to hear about your daily habits. What sets you up for success?
Yeah, so daily habits are huge. I'm a big believer in the routines. And so personally, again, I think we have to think of it from ways we can help build habits in players, which is what culture is. Really, the leader is kind of the person that's a little bit, it's like the end all be all the leader. And that's really not how culture works. It helps to kind of shape and learn those things. That's definitely not just a small part of culture. But my personal routines is I definitely have like a morning, a mid-morning, and a nightly routine. And so I'm a little bit different, because I was a college athlete. And so I'm disciplined. I get up. I don't get up. I'm not one of these guys that gets up. I used to do that for years. I used to get up at 5:30 or 5:45. Now I just understand the importance of sleep and how much better I feel, how much able I'm, or, be injury free on my feet. So I wake up every morning, just me personally, use the restroom, and I head into an ice bath. And I started that a few years back. Just something I don't feel like it's helping me, lose fat or anything, but just looking at the studies and stuff, I just decided to try it. And I've loved it ever since. I feel less anxious. For instance, today I feel much less anxious doing a podcast because I got into an ice bath this morning, and it just makes me feel good, wakes me up. And then I come in, I have some green tea, and I still take creatine even though I'm not a college athlete anymore.
Let's go, Coach. We're still working out.
Absolutely. So I take a green tea and a creatine, which I started a few years back too. And that's
Nice.
like a changer for me because it was hard to drink it with water and different things, but like making it part of the habit. So now it's every day. I don't miss a day now because I made it part of putting it in my green tea. And then I go 2 cups of coffee. And usually during that time, I may watch a little bit of morning news or, it's usually for me, like you talked about personal development. I love listening to podcasts. I love doing a little bit of reading. I love watching online clinics. I just basketball junkie, always been that way. And so I just like to learn. So I use that kind of mid-morning to learn. And then I go to the gym, after those cups of coffee have set in and got my ice bath. I've had a back injury the last few weeks. So, man, you take your health for granted. So I haven't been able to move it quite as much. But, I go to the gym every day. I try to go 6 days a week. And it doesn't always have to be. I definitely a big believer in lifting weights. I just bought a treadmill recently because I love walking, simple walk. And I know sometimes it's easier to do work while you're just walking the treadmill. But I definitely try to lift and stretch, stay mobile as we get older. I know that's a little bit tougher, especially because, I'm on my feet pretty much all evening, doing my academies. And so I try to stay healthy. And then, when I get back from the gym, it's the light lunch, take the shower, do some more work. And then, I usually head off to, my academies mid-afternoon, where I work with a few high schools in the area. So I may head to the high school, like at Fayetteville High School. I work Mondays and Thursdays. So I may head there and do some stuff. And then again, like just those are my like personal habits, and routines, if you will. And then I have a nightly routine, start to wind down. This summer it was having a cocktail from time to time, but kind of gotten away from that recently and just having, a nightly tea or a small glass of wine or whatever it is. But just trying to wind down, and I'm really trying to work less in the evenings. I still want to watch. I want to watch podcasts. I want to watch, and so it gets your brain kind of moving though. And so I'm trying to stay away from that as much as I can, but I still do it. I can't say I'm not great at that yet. But it's just I take a hot shower. Sometimes this summer I take another little quick ice bath in the evenings. Makes me feel good. Makes me sleep better. And then I'm just a big believer in sleep. I try to be in bed by 10 to 11, and I try to sleep till 7 or 8. So and that's just a big thing as far as me and my production. And I just know I do so much better, with sleep. And, again, if there's times I have to get up early, something for a workout or for a coaching clinic I got to drive to or whatever, then obviously I do that. But big believer in a morning and nightly routine and just having great habits, because when you make things habitual, it's easier just to kind of do it. So.
Thank you for sharing those. And Tim Ferriss was the one that really got me onto routines with his book, Tools of Titans. Loved that. But then also from some of his YouTube videos and his podcast. And just a reoccurring theme is what you just said. A lot of those high achievers, people that get a lot done throughout the day and have some success, they're not really wasting time, or at least they have things that are planned out. They have a ritual to what they do, and it just maybe allows them to be more productive. Couple things that you said, the ice bath, super impressed that out of a warm bed, cozy, you can jump into that. You mentioned the mental and the physical part, but maybe this is on the mental side, but the ability for you to do something early that's hard, that isn't natural for us to want to do, to get freezing like that. Is there something to that for you? Like, if you can do that, then what can't you do throughout the day?
Yeah, I do feel like it builds confidence. It's just I'm waking up doing stuff because I'm used to it mentally, but physically, it just sucks. It really does. And I do it every single day and sometimes twice a day. But
How long do you go for?
so with my back recently, I've been going about 6 minutes,
Oh.
but every day I try to do, about 3.5. So that's just a normal routine is 3.5. But again, I wouldn't recommend jumping into it. If you're going to be trying that out, I would recommend. And I do have a good friend of mine that coaches in the area, and him and his wife started doing it about a year ago, and he's been sticking with it. So, but it's just something, again, like you said, it does build a mental edge because you're doing something that sucks first thing, and so it just opens up your rest of your day. Like, hey, I'm already doing hard things, and it's building the habit of doing the hard things.
Yeah.
And again, like we can talk about habit stacking, or you do something you enjoy. So, like, I love listening to music. Well, if I can listen to music and take an ice bath, that makes the ice bath a little better. It's the same thing with anything. I think with players, it's like, I don't love going to the gym and really lifting, but I love listening to music. Well, hey, let's start going, but let's get, because you're trying to build the habit of good feelings. And I think those kind of habit stacking things are really good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're drinking coffee, but you hate reading, why don't we go to a coffee shop and take a book? Because you love going to the coffee shop and drinking coffee, if that makes sense. Just trying to give kind of a practical example.
Yeah, that makes sense. My first thought there, my worry would be, okay, here's my favorite song, and now I hate it because I'm associating it with an ice bath. But I don't think that's actually how it will go. Blown away by the 6 minutes. Mono Watsa with PGC, who's probably one of the greatest human beings I've ever known. And he talks about taking cold showers a lot. Another guy, Jamin Copeland, who's the coach at Ava Maria right now, but he was also a PGC director, and I knew him in high school in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so a lot of people around here will know who that is. But there's a legend of him getting onto his PGC athletes one time in a session, telling them, like, what it means to be tough, what it means to be a man. He says, I'm a man. I take ice baths, okay? Like, he just kind of went off on it, but I was like, wow. Apparently, I haven't reached that status yet of manhood, but no, that is something that I've always wanted to do especially from the injury prevention standpoint, getting inflammation down in my body. And you mentioned the back thing, and I appreciate you saying that so that I know I'm not the only one. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was at Walmart and I bent down to grab a stack of note cards, coach, not a 50-pound weight. And I felt a pop in my lower back, and I stood up and I shuffled my way out. But doing more things that maybe can help push that away, keep it off, the flexibility piece, the ice bath, definitely the back stuff. It makes you thankful for those moments where everything feels good.
Oh, man. And it happens to me for whatever reason. College athletics, it was squat lower, it was jump higher in the boxes, and we find out later, all the science, that's not the great thing. So, I go to a chiropractor, and he's just telling me, like what you just said. When I actually heard it, you reached down for a stack of cards. I reached down to tie my right shoe. And the irony of it is I was actually headed to a massage. Had a 10 a.m. massage set, and I reached down to tie my shoe, and I have to call them and say, I'm in a back spasm and I can't move. So I have to cancel the massage.
Wow. Coach, we're getting real here. We're not holding back. We're being authentic. This is legit. And you nailed it with the creatine thing. There's more and more coming out with even not the 5-gram doses, what's pretty normal, but the 10, possibly 15-gram doses, even having more of a mental effect too. And it is, you're right. It's not just for athletes. It's a daily thing that male, female, all ages, we need to be taking.
For sure. That's exactly right. And that's what I've done, and I'm with you. I'm doing the 5 gram kind of maintain dosage, but I have read the research and maybe thinking about taking 10, maybe do 5 in the morning and 5 in the evening, make that part of my routine. So
I like that.
Regardless, I'm not big like, hey, you got to take an ice bath. It's just, that's what works for me. I'm just saying,
right.
Try to talk to athletes and everybody about just get a routine, because like you said, once it becomes, just your habits, starts to become much easier. It takes the guesswork out, takes the thinking out. And so you think about fitness people, they eat a lot of the same meals. Why do they do that? It's not because, again, it takes the guesswork out, and they know this is just a habit, and that's what kind of helps them keep fit and helps them reach calorie goals and all that stuff.
Well, hope is a horrible plan. We don't want our players to do things based on hope. Like, don't base your game on hope. I hope this pass is open when I leap off of 1 foot and I don't really know where my teammates are. That's a horrible plan. If we're hoping that our habits just line up, or the things that we want to get done during the day, or our nutrition is on point, I hope it will be. No, probably not. That cookie's going to look really darn good when you're hungry, especially in the teacher's lounge, Coach. They just, and that's where all the bad stuff is, so don't go in there. Yeah, we got to have those good plans. The sleep part for me, I'm a very light sleeper. I've tossed and turned, and I wake up, I feel like every 20 or 30 minutes, which, man, there's a lot of stuff with sleep. The worse you sleep, the years of your life are literally just like being taken away, or you can add to them with better sleep. What are some keys to you getting solid 8-9 hours?
Yeah, so I take a sleep stack. I used to take the pills. I had something reach out recently, pre-sleep, that I've just kind of posted on Twitter, and they're wanting me to be an affiliate.
I saw that.
20% off. So they sent me some stuff in the mail, and I really like it. But I've already taken that exact stack. I was just buying it in pill form. I'd like the local health food store. But it's magnesium glycinate, L-threonate, and glycine. And so I think they just have the dosage kind of already. It's a little bit easier. Just kind of pour it into your nightly tea or whatever, water, mix it up, drink it. And again, I think for me, a warm shower, ice bath in the evening, kind of helps me sleep better for whatever reason. And again, just wind it down, trying to stay away from the screens, trying away from looking at your phone, especially the last hour before you go to sleep. And those things are hard, especially if you have to. But the more you can do that, it's a lot of it's just the habit of getting to bed at the same time. If you're going to bed one night and it's 11:30, the next night and you're 9, the next, that's really tough, and it wrecks your sleep.
Magnesium, the glycinate, and threonate. That's 2 forms of it you're taking together. Do you know, just off the top of your head, how many milligrams that you're getting to out of those 2 with those 2 forms?
Yeah, so it's 200 to 400 milligrams of the glycinate and the L-threonate, and then the glycine, I think it's 1,000, but I have to check that. But again, like a lot of these companies have a good pre-sleep that you can look into. Of course, I can send you that stuff too if you ever.
Yeah, well, I like personally separating things out. The pre-made stacks of whatever we're talking about, pre-workout, whatever it is, are nice because of how simple it is. But if you actually look at the nootropics and things, like I'm kind of interested in that stuff too. If you look at the size of each ingredient, they're typically really small. Like, and there's a guy at the vitamin shop near me that's always talking about the clinical dose, the clinical dose. I'm like, I don't know about that, but usually that stuff, it's way smaller. So interested in stacking those 2. I've done magnesium glycinate right now. Threonate, I've usually done in the mornings. Stacking both at nights, interesting. And then glycine. Tell me what that does for you.
Yeah, so again, it's just another supplement that helps sleep, but it's not like melatonin, which I've never taken or believed in. It feels groggy and you have crazy dreams and all this stuff. I want to stay away from that. So it's more of a natural way, I think, of getting the stuff that you don't get in your diet to help you sleep better. And it does make a difference. Now, I think that's supplementation to doing the other things, right? Like winding down, not being, keeping your stress levels low, especially in the evening, and getting out of the.
That's like you can't take a fat burner and then eat donuts all day. Like that doesn't do anything.
That's right. So the consistent, whatever it is, some people say reading makes their brain wake up more. Reading actually helps me go to sleep. So again, just different for everybody. I do some reading in the evenings. And so, it's just fine with what works for you through trial and error and trying different things. But consistently going to the bed and waking up at the same times, the same, 30 minutes to an hour time frame, that's going to be key.
Is there anything to the blue light glasses? It seems like a gimmick to me. And you see some of those guys like Dave Asprey or whatever his name is, the butter guy, wearing them different shades and stuff. And my wife got me a pair they're clear, like they're clear lens. And I'm sitting here putting them on. I'm like, how do I know? Like if it's doing anything? If you have no experience with those, I'll just edit this all out. If you do, I'm curious.
No, I don't have experience. I know what you're talking about. I have no experience, but if I was having trouble sleeping, I would try those things.
Yeah.
Because I know how much better it makes me feel. So, again, you just got to find out what works for you. And this is working for me, so I don't need to add the blue lights to it.
That's fair. You've been able to be around so many different coaches over your career, and you still are, and players too. What are some characteristics of great leaders that you've seen that they have in common?
Well, so, again, I think when it comes to great coaches, I would say the first thing is they have to know their stuff. Because if you don't know the tactical and technical pieces and how to get players better and keep up with the time and those things, you're not going to be able to work. And I worked for Drew at Pure Sweat. It was like, you have to be good enough where if LeBron James walks into this gym, you have full confidence that you're going to be able to take him through a workout and he's going to get something out of that. And if you don't feel that way, then you don't know your craft well. And so I 100% feel that way. I 100% feel like I could bring any player in the world and show them film and show them things that they need to, do a little bit better, or put them in situations where they can problem solve in those situations. Because I'm not a big believer in the alone stuff. I'm more of like putting them in some problem solving situations. But I think that's the number one thing is you have to be able to teach at a deep level or be able to put them in situations where they can find, problem solving, find solutions. The second part, and again, I don't know if one's more important than the other.
Sure.
I think they're all three very important, but you have to be able to build relationships. You have to be able to build trust. If players don't trust you in all aspects, not just on the floor of getting it better, but off the floor and taking care of their needs, again, being a transformational coach instead of a transactional. If they can't trust you, if you can't build relationships and learn about them and understand that you're coaching people, you're not coaching just a basketball player that you're just trying to use up to win games. Again, I think you're missing, a big piece. And then the last part is like, can you communicate? And it's not my job. I don't think it's any coach's job to necessarily motivate, but you have to have an it factor of being motivational. You have to be able to have, to like in school, for instance, you have these motivational speakers come in and you're going to, the first 5 minutes, if this is going to be something you're going to want to pay attention to and take notes on, or if you're going to be like, oh, gosh, this is going to be bad. It's just that it factor of being able to communicate effectively. It's having energy. It's being motivational, understanding that getting better is going to be an intrinsic motivation anyway, but you have to still be able to set the agenda and be motivational in that sense. And so I think those are the three most important things. And when it comes to the technical, tactical, and learning stuff, I think coaches have to be open-minded, because if you're still doing stuff that they did in the 1980s and the game's evolved, and we know that the block practice is not the best thing for kids to get better, you're not keeping up with the times. Are you studying the best way players develop today's world? Because it's totally different, right? Like in our day, we would go to basketball camps, right? You would go to the University of Baylor team camp or to learn. You would go there to learn, fundamental drills or things you could do to get better or play against better competition. But in today's world, these kids have a computer in their hand, a phone. They can watch and learn. I mean, these kids will call me. I've got a kid that was a senior last year. He would call me and be, I already watched 3 games this morning. And I'm like thinking back when I was a young player, it's like, dude, I would have to wait all night before I could get to watch Michael Jordan play with the Chicago Bulls at 7:00, and kids can watch 3 games before they eat breakfast. And so it's a different world as far as the learning goes. What they don't get as much of today is just the freedom to play basketball where they're not getting coached and told that's not the right way to do it, and that's not fundamental, and that's not this and that. And so I think opening up avenues for players to just have free play, and be able to fail and learn and just be with their friends, social aspect, all that. You got to build, environments where kids can have more free play.
Man, two things right there is, I think we got to make sure we leave the fun into training with our players. I think so many times coaches, sometimes parents can maybe suck the fun out of the game. So keeping the fun in it while we're being purposeful and intentional with what we're doing. And then you nailed it. Put them in situations where we let the game teach the game. Like the game will show a player why a single gap is bad. It's going to show them that. So instead of before they go through it, stopping them and helicopter parenting it and pulling them out of that, man, let them fail through that. And then through the question method, and not in a way that puts them down, but uplifts them and helps them to think through that process. I think we got to put them in those situations all the time.
Yeah. And that's what the games-based approach is, right? Just instead of making it a drill, let's make it a game. But then again, we can take it a step further, observing, right? Instead of just telling them what they have to do, or just set up a game and then observe what happens and then say, okay, how can I tweak? How can I manipulate? How can I change constraints? And then make it where, and that takes a lot of practice. That's not something a coach can just do. I'm so fortunate because at Fayetteville High School, they've hired me to do a lot of skill work on the court, conditioning things. And these coaches Coach Rimmer and Coach Stamps have played for state championships, won multiple state championships. And they're saying, hey, is there a better way? Is there a way you could come in and take this segment of practice and do small-sided games? And when coaches have open minds like that and start to look in how players are different today than they were 20 years ago, man, that's like dropping the ego and humble and humility. And that's the best thing for a leader to be, right? So I feel very fortunate to just be able to be like, yes, I absolutely will. And I'm so glad that you're having a little bit of humility and letting your guard down, letting somebody else just take the reins for a small portion of your practice. Because again, they want to learn, they want to win games, they want to help their players get better. And if there's a better way to do that, they have to be open-minded to let that in.
Coach, you nailed it. Like, I was thinking of competency or competent, right? Knowing your craft, relationships, and becoming a better communicator with what you're doing. I was wondering, like, how do we do that? What's the way? You have to have humility at first, or else you're never going to even seek out or think that there might be a better way or wonder if there is one, and be curious enough. And I think also make confident enough in yourself to be able to ask people like you, or to go on a Pure Sweat website and try to find something that pushes you. But I wrote down humility, and then you just nailed it. The games-based approach, is there a balance between when you teach a skill and it's maybe on zero, it's just against air going through that before you put them in? Or do you, like, is there a 80-20, or is it 100%, or does it depend on also the level of player that you're dealing with?
So personally, and again, I worked for Pure Sweat for years, but my philosophy in training players is completely different. And not to take anything away from Drew, he does it the way he does things. I do things a completely different way. And so I feel it's not a beginner. I feel like there are ways to manipulate constraints and put them in problem solving. Again, it doesn't have to be, every player is different. And so you have to put them in problem solving situations, but then you have to observe and say, okay, is this too hard? Is this too easy? Is it not challenging enough? And then I can manipulate constraints. I can almost make a kid do any skill, quote unquote, that I wanted to make them do, but I don't have to teach it. I don't necessarily teach skills, but I can make a kid do a Euro step. I could put them out on the perimeter and say, hey, you have a defender neutral, and whenever you go, it's live, but I have a rim protector under the rim. And I say, hey, you're only allowed to take one step to your left, one step to your right, or one step forward. And what's the kid going to do? They're going to naturally make a Euro step. I don't have to teach. I have a girl right now that's a sixth grade girl, and she started last year as a beginner. And she's tall, she's long, she's athletic, but I've never once taught her a skill. And she can do, crazy finishes, right? Like Euro steps and, pivots where she turns away, up and unders like Luka Doncic. And she's never been taught those things. It's just she's been put in situations where I say, hey, look, you have to drive it at the paint and you have to get on 2 feet before you can score. Perfect. So she goes in there and she tries to find a solution. Okay, you have to drive it at the paint and you have to pivot before you can score. You have to get on, now you have to get on 2 feet, but you have to pivot before you can score. And the defense, you're allowed to do anything you want. Out them, get back, keep your hands high. You can't jump. But again, like you can make kids find solutions that are functional. I think where we miss the boat as youth coaches is, I'll teach a player something or they'll do something and they'll say, my coach tells me that's wrong. And I say, well, you have to do what you have to do for your coach, right? Because they'll like, for instance, this girl comes in and she does the same foot, same hand layup. Well, her coach says, whoa, that's not correct. You have to go off your left foot with your right hand. And then, so now she doesn't do that. But then later on, when she gets to be 14 or 15, their high school coach is going to call me and say, hey, this girl's really good. And like, we got to teach her how to do right foot, right hand layups because she's getting to the rim anytime she wants. And it's just funny. It's like, if we could go back in time and just let players their solutions and not worry about how they found the solution, as long as it's functional, right? Doesn't mean you can't give some external cues and coach. That's the biggest myth, I think, is people say, oh, small-sided game, they just don't do what they want. In the constraint-led approach, it's nudging them towards different solutions, right? If you just do games, they're going to do the same thing they always do. They're quicker than everybody, try to get to the rim every time. So like that same girl, for instance, it's like, hey, we know you're playing against lesser competition, maybe not as good as you. You can get to the rim anytime you want. Why don't we work on trying to find separation and pull up and shoot on balance? Now, do we want kids taking mid-range jump shots? No, but this is a young girl that's just learning how to play basketball. We're just trying to, like, that's the balance component. We're just working on, hey, be able to sprint into a shot, whether it's 1-2 or you hop into it and then just find balance, land in the refrigerator box or the balance box or whatever you want to, call that. But that's how you bring out skills functionally through games as opposed to just repping a technique over and over and over again, which is the way we were taught. Well, you and I were coached that way. Like,
Yep.
I always use the example of when I was in 8th grade. I was a gym rat in 8th grade, and I could do the mic and drill. I could make 23 in 30 seconds. But when I was this junior or senior in college, I could make 23 in 30 seconds. And so it's like, what is this? This is not this. I'm doing this in college at the Division I level. Like, we're 30 seconds, everybody's in the basket we're doing. And the thing is, we have to stay fundamental. And it's like, well, this is not fundamental because this is not going to be a real solution. Number one, I'm not even going to shoot a layup. I don't know about you, but when I drove to the basket in college, it was to throw a lob or kick it out to somebody. It was to draw defense, but it was not to go shoot a layup. At 6 foot tall, that would get pinned, to the other end. So I just never understood why we're doing these block drills that don't translate. Now if you said, hey, we're playing one-on-one and you got to try to get to the paint, and if you can score, great. And if you can't, kick it out, great drill, right? Because it's game-like. It's a game-like thing that, it's a small-sided game that we can build real functional skills, in a game, in task-representative game, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
And so, again, I still feel like, to answer your question, I still feel like you can, like Coach Rimmer and I had this conversation a few days ago. It's like, Coach, all your players are doing the exact same drill. And he's like, I know, yeah. And I was like, okay. All your players are completely different. You literally have 2 girls down there that already have high major offers. They got a 9th grader and a 10th grader that potentially could be WNBA players. High major. Arkansas has already offered, like Oklahoma State, Alabama, SEC high level. And if you're doing a mic and drill with those girls and you're doing a mic and drill down here with these girls need more than a mic and drill. Our job as coaches is to try to manipulate the constraints or put them in situations where it's that right level of challenge, right? Like those 2 down there, they need to be going live one-on-one in the paint. I mean, you can do a mic drill, but add defense. Well, if that's too hard and they can't score, hey, tell they add defense, but they can't put their hands up. And so you can manipulate constraints. And how you do that, because coaches always ask, is you observe and you see if it's too easy or too hard, right? All the basic fundamental drills, they're going to be way too easy. Now, for some players, that may be really hard. But again, just by adding defense and constraining the defense where they can't jump, they can't move, just having them be there. It could be a coach. It could be whoever. You're going to be able to build. Again, skills are perception and action, right? You have to see something and react to it. That's the number one thing of any sport. You have to see it and react. So if we take out what you see and react to, how do you think that's ever going to translate to a real football game? It's not. And the science tells us that. Years ago, we didn't have that science. But it's the people that study human movement, skill acquisition, skill adaptation, they're going to tell you that you have to be able to see and react. So why would you not train, see, and react? But that challenge point, I would say, is 60 to 70%. You know, in the science world, they call it the Goldilocks principle. It's not too hard, not too easy, but it's just right. So you want it to be challenging, but you don't want it to be too easy or too challenging, right? If you have a girl down here and she can't do anything against the D1 girl down here, that's deflating. That's not going to help her to improve. But if you have the girl down here that's the D1 high major player, and she's like, this is so easy, they're both not getting what they need.
That's right.
We have to find the challenge point for each player on our team.
Yeah, you nailed so many good things, and I try to take a little bit of notes to go back through. And that the point you just made, though, is something I thought about for a long time. I want to train everybody in the gym as if they're our best players. I think sometimes we're guilty of, we either dumb it down for little Timmy, that every gym has a little Timmy. We dumb it down for him, or we just go too far above and only cater to maybe the one or two. I think that what I try to do is steer more towards our higher level players, but that you nailed it. What degrees can I take off? What steps can I take out for some of players to challenge them, but then still get at the creativity and have that level of challenge for my better players? I think that's kind of the art of it. It's pretty easy to say, hey, everybody micing for 20 seconds now. And for little Timmy, that may be tough, but definitely not training him like your best players. It's not making your best players better. So yeah, if you have 6 baskets in your gym, you have them grouped up. I always just ask, hey, get in competitive groups of 3 or 4. They don't know what we're going to do. We may play a small-sided game. We may not, but if they get in those kind of groups, they organize themselves, I can start to walking the gym, even just in a whisper or a quick talk. Hey, you guys are going to be doing this. Hey, let's move on. That's great. Now this. And let the other guys stay where they need to be. But so much of this is why I feel like us continuing to learn and have a growth mindset as we get older is really important. Because you're right, you and I were taught by the same people at that same era, and I was the one probably 13 or 15 years ago at McKinney High School outlawing the drop footwork on a shot, either off the dribble or off the catch. And I was a 1-2 inside footstep. Guys, listen, this is the only way we do this. And then I started watching J.J. Redick, Clay Thompson, but more importantly, I started to remember of how I actually played, and I dropped way more than I ever stepped. I liked the idea that no matter where that pass comes, I can quickly move my body, drop my hips, get my feet down, and go up. Or off the bounce, there's a time for that. But so where did this idea come where at McKinney High School, we only do this way? I don't even know. So like the challenge for coaches is, what are the things that what are you outlawing in your gym skill-wise? And then ask yourself why. Like, what's the real reason behind that? And it's rarely black and white. I think it's more the time we got to live in the gray of the game and figure out solutions. And sometimes drop footwork is better than step. But we got to be, I think if we're not humble enough to zoom out and to listen to other people, we may be stuck in that pattern.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I spoke at a clinic a few weeks ago, and a couple things. So, number one, I watched 2 back-to-back college practices, a women's college team, Division II, and then a men's college team, Division II. And the whole practice was drills. Not one time did they add deep. They had added deep. The girls' practice had a defense a little bit at the end. The guys did a little bit at the end, which is what most practices are. Drill after drill after drill, 2-on-0 passing, 3-on-0, shooting, no decisions, no defense. And so it's still happening. And then they get me that speaks. And I'm just like, are those coaches, are they gone? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, good, because I'm getting ready to tell you that there's a better way to do things. And it's not just my opinion. This is like years and years of research that we know. And to your point too, I know for a fact, I asked the question that day to those coaches. I said, do you know why you coach the way you coach? And it's rhetorical because I know the answer, because there's been studies done by every country. We coach the way we coach because it's the way we were coached as players. Mm-hmm. And the second part of that is, if it's not that, the second answer is we coach the way that one of our mentors or coaches that we looked up to, maybe it's a state championship coach up the road that told us this is the way to do things. And so again, we know that those things are not the truth. And they all coaches are well-intentioned, right? We want to teach players fundamentals, those things, but it's not saying that we can't do those things. It's just, is there a better way of doing those things? And you and I were gym rats, so we want to encourage players to go and work on their 1-2 steps, their hops in the gym, but that's player-led, right? What's happening at this college practice that I was at is you bring 2 full teams in, and we're having 15 separate individual practices against air. And it's like, whoa, we got the best training tools in the world, other people, other defenders. So why are we not using those at every basket? Why are we 15 people at one basket and 6 people are going, everybody else is standing in line watching? We get better by doing, not by listening and learning. We're going to get better by doing. And you can make players work on the things you want to make, but you're going to get better by the repetition without repetition of the doing and not just talking. After I got done, and again, I respect all coaches. I love all coaches. After I spoke, I stuck around because Bob Hoffman spoke. And Bob Hoffman is a offensive genius. And I don't know if you know who Bob Hoffman is, but
I've had him on. It was incredible. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And so when I was a graduate assistant, he was at Texas Pan Am down in Edinburgh, Brownsville, Texas, way down the Mexican border. And, I had to do his scout. And I was like, look at the stuff he's doing offensively. It was unreal. And this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I saw a Flapping Glass posted a video or something the other day, and they said this guy's like, they're pitching it ahead and then slipping the other guy from the – and I'm like, Bob Hoffman was doing that 20 years ago. That's great.
That's not new.
It's like – and I talked to him about that, but he was talking about offensive sets and all that. I was just kind of had my head down. I was talking to another coach. And then he said this, and man, my ears perked up. He said exactly, quote unquote, he said, you can do all this fundamental stuff you want. He said, and I've done it years. I'm a lifelong coach. He said, you can do all the jump stops and the turnaround pivot USA drills where you pass with one hand, you go to the end of the line. He said, you can work on your layups. But he said, as soon as you add defense, you can throw all that stuff out the window. He goes, if you don't believe me, you watch your game films. You got guys throwing passes like this, and they're throwing passes like this, and they're coming in, they're finishing, they're having to make moves. And he goes, you don't work on that. No one's working on that fundamental stuff. He's like, when we do fundamental work, we're not working on that. And so he said, I've gotten away from all these fundamental technique drills because it doesn't translate. And I was like, exactly. And I know why it doesn't translate, right? Because you're not training with perception and action. You're not putting players in problem solving. You're putting them in blocked, technical, tactical drill, fundamental, do it this way. It's got to look better. You got to go faster. You got to go, but you're taking out the most important component, which is seeing and reacting, which again, if you really study the science, our brain is not what's controlling movement anyway, right? Imagine our brain if we had to, because finishing against a 6-foot girl and finishing against a 6'7" girl, that's going to be totally different. So imagine all the different, if we could just store things in our brain. I mean, it would be billions and billions of techniques stored. It's impossible, right? We just have to find solutions. Now, we can nudge them towards functionality and make it, but again, external cues are way better than to me show them this over and over again. They do this over and over again. And so I know we're getting a little bit deeper, but
no, it's good.
If that kind of stuff starts to make a little bit of sense, I mean, to me, it's so simple. It's like players playing against nobody But then when they play in a game, it's going to be chaos and unpredictability and playing against, and you have to figure out those solutions in real time. But again, it's not just the roll the balls out. Hey, we're playing 3-on-3 FIBA, because I went off on a young girl the other day, and I say go off. I just say, hey, look, this is not what you're used to. You're not playing 3-on-3 FIBA, at the center up here. We're working on gets, and we're working on punishing the defense against gets and against that coverage. This is not just you do whatever the hell you want to do. We're working on this, this, and this. And so let's start trying to change our mind to work on these things. And so, again, it's coaching at the highest level. It's not just throw the balls out, put them in small-sided games every basket, do the same small-sided games every day. It's how do I challenge and get that healthy level of challenge for each and every one of my players? Because like you said earlier, if you're getting your players better, they're going to come back for more. If they're having fun, right, and they know you love them and they know you care about them and you're actually trying to improve, even if they're not playing, you're a really big part of their development and getting better. They're liable to come back. I know we're in the transfer world. It's trickled down to high school, even junior high.
Yeah.
If I don't play, I go somewhere else. But anyway.
I mean, you've really kind of circled back around to, like, take the competency. We need to know our craft. What helps us to know it even more is being curious. I think if there was a list of attributes that great coaches have, I feel like most of the time they're pretty curious, or at least at one point in their life they were, and maybe they got to a place where they feel like, all right, this is who I am. This is where I'm really comfortable. But then I try to ask the question of why aren't we more curious because of that word comfortable? I think we are like to coach the things that either we did or we feel really good about. Like there's some drills. I am a believer in what you're saying, and I don't know if you'd be pleased with everything in Grapevine Face second period athletics. Sure, I'm pretty sure I make some bad choices and fail, but it goes back to, here's another point. So now I'm flying all over. But you said how we want to, if we look back 5-10 years ago, we're doing the same things in our life. But I think you could take that to your practice plans. Look back, if you have them organized, look back 5 years ago, and they better be different. Like for me, one of the big changes was taking 80% of the drills out and adding more live play, but you're right on the money, not just live play for live play's sake, but specific games that have goals to them, constraints, things that we're trying to achieve that put them in the situations that I know in a game, the way we play they'll be in. Taking the drills out and putting that stuff more in, like I see that change. But that came from having to be I'm so proud of how humble I am. No, like you have to be a little humble and curious and get uncomfortable, because if I was trying to be comfortable, then I'd stay with the same stuff. Man, crap, coach, we'd run flex because that's what Coach Bliss ran at Baylor. Thankfully, we don't do that. But I think getting out of that comfort zone, and then especially with the communication piece, like having that it factor, you need to have energy, you need to have conviction for what you're talking about, passion for what you're talking about, be authentic. But if it's uncomfortable for you and you're not okay with that, then I think you'll stay in the same spot.
Yeah, and that's the thing you said, is those fundamental things, they may have worked 20 years ago, but the problem is it would be great if the game doesn't change, right? If we haven't studied, and we have all these people that study human movement and ways to acquire skill, but that all changes. Not only does it change, like, for instance, you're in Texas. I mean, you're in football. Like, the stuff that happens up here is going to be different than stuff that happens down there. I mean, the game is so different. Do you guys have a shot clock in Texas?
No, we don't.
Okay, so in Arkansas, they have a shot clock. Well, players are going to be, it's different. Same game, right? It could be the same national federation.
Yeah, there shouldn't be ever a set it up and run it again. That clock's almost down. You've got to start to create at that, or have actions that lead to them having space and either ors. But
yeah. And so again, it's such an evolving game that's always changing, but yet coaches are still going with the practices. I mean, again, I was a graduate assistant coach, and I can remember going into Coach Nutt and him saying, "Hey, grab the 2004 book the practice book that we did. So let's look at what we did November 12th, 2004. We can just make a little plan today." And it's like, Coach, man, like this game has changed in the last, and just imagine how, how it's changed now. I mean, it's insane, and it changes very quickly, now. And so again, I just think that coaches, like you said, have to keep up with the times and find the best ways to, to help players improve and help their practices.
I think a good goal for us would be to not say this about our players. Man, they look really good in our drills, but then when we play, they just don't seem to make shots, or they don't seem to see the reads. It's like, well, pretty simple. If there's no hand running at you, or there's no prep, like why we tell our guys, why do shooters miss in games? Well, they practice too slow and they practice without pressure. So you can do some things in shooting games. Like we've really taken volume out of our vocabulary. We're not just shooting for volume. Rarely. They can do that on their own on the gun. They can do that at their house when the sun's shining and there's no wind, and they can do that. But we need to add pressure and we need to add speed to it. So shooting games, in my opinion, help with that a lot. But we want to be able to say that they are practicing and in situations where they will be in the game, so that in a game we can actually give them real confidence or speak to why they should be confident. Hey, Johnny, you should be confident taking that double gap and driving down, and then you can either finish or kick if that. You should be confident in that because, Johnny, you do that every day. In practice, you're in that situation. I've seen you execute that. But if it was just 2-on-0, truthfully, I don't know. I don't know if they can really do that or not. Why are they making that mistake in a game? We haven't really seen it. So I think that's a good goal for us.
Yeah, coaches all the time, all over the world, they'll reach out to me and they'll say, Coach, we have no decision makers. Coach, we have no leaders. Coach, we have no shooters. And then it's like, let's talk about
Build them.
Talk about your practice. And they'll walk me through the first hour, and it's like, okay, so there's been zero decision-making in your practice yet. Have you done anything with defense? No. Well, we did ball handling. Was any defense involved? No. We got them all, going against cones. It's like, Coach, they're not the problem. You're the problem. And it's hard to hear. We have no leaders. Okay, well, tell me about when do they get to talk? Do they help co-design? No, I do all that. I'm the dictator. Well, you're not going to have a leader because, and most of the time, the leaders that they feel like they're leaders, the kids are too scared to come and talk to them anyway, because they feel like if they do speak up, they get yelled at or they get made fun of a little bit, or it's a sarcastic comment, so they just don't say anything. Well, then they complain about having no leaders. We have no shooters, but yet every shooting drill you do, there's no defense or decisions. It's like if you look,
make 5 from 5 spots, and then we'll move on. All right.
The extreme
took them 25 shots to get to 5 on the first spot, but we're
and it does. Even though there's no studies, there are no studies literally that it says it builds comfort and confidence. A lot of people say, "Oh, player-led development builds comfort and confidence." Even though there are no studies that show that, I do believe experimentally as a player, as a gym rat, that it did build my comfort and confidence. And we want to encourage players to get as much of that on their own as possible, right? As long as it's not going to make them, burnt out. But again, when our job as coaches is to bridge the gap between player-led and coach-led development, we got to get decisions. We got to get as much chaos, unpredictability, because that's how the game's going to be played. And if we're not putting them in those environments every day, you can't expect guys to make shots with no decisions, because every shot in basketball is going to have a decision, except the free throw, right? So it's like we have to find ways, to be more creative in our practice environment. I think it's the number one thing we do, build creative practice design. I think it's the number one thing a coach does. Because if you don't have great practices, you're not going to have great. You can't. I never understood it in all the years I coached of why we're training players this way and then expect that to translate to over here. Well, we couldn't pass and catch, so we're going to do 2-ball passing for 30 straight minutes. That don't matter, because when you it's live defense and people pressuring you, it's like that's a totally different thing. So it builds false confidence in players, right? Because on week 1, your kids aren't making 23 micins, right? They're making 15. Well, at the end of it, they're making 20. Oh, we got better. No, you didn't, because it wasn't in game context. Oh, well, we were shooting 60% from 2, and now we're shooting 70. Yeah, but was there defense? I mean, it's great that you're getting better in practice drills, but that's all it is. You're getting better in the practice drills. It's not going to really translate, because if it did, I mean, Steph Curry and these guys play, they wouldn't be making 40%, right? They'd be making 95%. That's
Sure.
what I could go on the gun. I think I can go. They make 85 out of 100 from three. I mean, I haven't shot up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't translate to when we add defensive decisions. Why? Because it's just so many different factors. You know, the defense, the angle. I mean, it's too many. It's millions of different factors in every game, and so the way we can build adaptable players is by letting them find solutions in the chaos. And the more they can do that, they get better at it. Like you said, you know, your kid's not going to make as many shots, but as long as they understand the science of, hey, you're not going to make as many shots. If we put you in a drill where you just made 80 out of 100, oh man, I can really shoot, but it's building a false confidence.
Yep.
Whereas we put you in this small-sided game and you make 37% from three, not too bad.
It's real.
Not too bad for a high school kid. And a lot of coaches that come in, that's the first thing they say is like, your shooting games, they're game-like because of they're not making that many. They're making 3 to 4 out of 10. And it's like, yeah, but those shots are going to translate to the real games because they're having to make decisions. And so you can get the repetition without repetition. I do a lot of 2v1 shooting in every different way you could do it. You know, from gets to ball screens to driving kick to fill behind to whatever it is. But you just make a game where, you know, they can do 3 straight reps on defense, then we rotate. Or you could say, hey, if the offense makes it, make it, take it. If the defense gets a deflection at all, they get to be on offense. If the offense misses or turns the ball over, they're on defense. However you wanted to manipulate, you know, the environment, but you can still get a lot of good shooting reps. It's not like, I think sometimes coaches think, oh man, if we just did, you know, Olympic shooting 3-man 2-ball, we get way more reps. No, you really wouldn't, because every 4 seconds in those two-man shooting games, even with defense flying at them, they're getting a shot go up. And so, you know, again, I know shooting is probably very important to what you guys do at your school. And so, you know, you can still get those reps. You just got to find different ways to do it.
I'm with you. I think, one, I just want to celebrate you in being one of those guys that challenges me, challenges coaches. I think you're really important, because as much as I feel like I'm aligned with you and have changed and evolved, even in the last 5 years, definitely in the last 15, when I was at McKinney High School, this was probably my second or third year of high school. I was Coach Watson's varsity assistant. We had been 8-21, running Bobby Knight's motion, controlling every pass, every possession, scouting our tails off, real competitive. We were 8-21, and we had this group coming back that we thought was a little bit more skilled, and we dribble drive with Cal Party was just coming out with the Memphis packet that was floating around, and and Wes wanted to press some diamond stuff that a guy named Kenny Hoffpower down in this area is really known for. And so we thought, man, those two really work well together, running and gunning and 4 out 1 in, and emphasizing shooting quicker than grinding 8-5. You know, Hoosiers, how many 5 passes? No, that's not true. So, like, we had to change our thinking a little bit in that. And that kind of took me down this rabbit hole of really what can you do with speed and with freedom, and teaching players how to shoot with courage. And so but one of the biggest things was we didn't recruit a bunch of kids to come to that public school. We had the same group coming back, but instead of saying, which we've all said is, if we only had the shooters, we would play that way. Well, let's build them. Like, what can we do to maximize? And that should be the idea, in my opinion, of every workout or every season, is this is who's God has put in our gym. What can we do to get every bit of potential within the playing style that you choose out of these guys? And so that we took on that mentality. And so instead of us saying like, hey, great defensive practice, guys. Oh, when you get home, make sure you shoot 100. Because that's what I think is done a lot. Like, we're hoping that these kids they have schoolwork and they have all these things that they want to do are going to go shoot more, and that those shots are actually going to contribute to them sprinting down the floor, getting to the deep corner, turning, getting their feet set with the defender flying at them and getting that shot off. That's not the same thing. So we took it on ourselves. Like, that's on our time. You becoming a great shooter is going to be on our time. We're going to take things out of practice that we used to do to make sure that we could do that. But we're going to be really smart with our time. And that's kind of stayed over the years. But to me, this is really bleeding into culture. What are the things that you say you wish you had more of? Are you creating an environment where those things can actually develop? Shooting is a great example. I've talked to a lot of coaches. I think how you deal with shot selection has a lot to do with the culture of your whole program, how you talk about that one thing. So for us, it's more of that Doug Novak style. We do hang our hat on the ability to shoot. The goal is every offensive possession is not do we score, it's do we get the best shot as fast as possible. We have to define what best shot is so that it's not vague. Little Timmy shoots a step back three from half court. That's not our best shot. So we have a scale. But it's like what Doug Novak said. He said, it's not that you have to make it, it's that you have to take it. And when you that culture starts to bleed into your training and allows them to be more courageous, you get those kids that will miss 8 and without batting an eye, shoot the 9th one because they're supposed to take it. I kind of just rambled on there for a long time, but I think it leads into kind of what you're saying and in the culture that we have in our program. You say you want more shooters, and we'll play coaches that'll come up and be like, golly, if we had shooters like you do, we'd play that way too. And I just look at it in my head, I'm thinking they weren't like born this way. We've had to work really hard.
And that's it. It's like building that environment of like simple constraints, right? Like rules. If I'm in a 2v1 shooting game and I tell the defense, hey, you're in scramble mode, you have to fly wherever the ball goes. Your job is to try to get deflections and contest every shot. But the offense, like for instance, the ball's thrown to the wing and they run to the wing and then the ball swung to the corner and then the defense comes all the way to the corner and then they throw it back to the wing. That's a turnover because the simple rule is if you are open, you must shoot. Because again, you just put in a constraint of 0-second decisions. You got to catch it, put it on the floor, swing it right when you catch it. You don't get to. So if you catch it and you hold it, you wait for the defense to get back all of them. You cheat the drill, right? Like I was the best drill cheater in the world. And right, I could cheat every drill. So I find ways as a coach to creatively not let players cheat the drill. You know, like, hey, if we're working on finishing, and the defense backs off. Oh, by the way, if the defense backs off, you can shoot a 3, and it's just a free rep. Just get you a free rep up, and they're going to stay on defense until you go. Oh, well, guess what they're going to do? Now they're going to get up, and now we're going to open up the drive. And so you have to find ways creatively to take away, kids cheating drill because they're smart. They'll just start playing where it is that you're doing. And again, I hate the word drill. It's a small-sided game. But again, that's what a lot of coaches use as far as, the linguistic intentionality of what they're saying. So I just sometimes say drills. But
I still say drill, but I know what you're saying. Drill to me is oh man, if any football coaches hear this, I apologize. But sometimes I check out the field and there's one coach, one kid, and a line of 15. And that coach is throwing, not even the player, their own quarterback's not throwing it. The coach is throwing it. And it's one handed back, another one handed back. And it's like you said, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but it's like you said with the illusion of we get shots up in practice. I don't care about the number. There's some days where probably the total number of shots that we get in our 43 minutes in athletics isn't super high, but every one of those are real. Every rep is intentional with speed and pressure to where that feeling of anxiety and possibly fear at the beginning is the same that they'll feel or close to, as close as possible. So yeah, beware of we did 3 shooting drills today. Were they similar or close to what they'll actually do? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. It's exactly right. Do they involve decisions? Because you're not going to shoot basketball. You're not going to play basketball independent of decisions. And so if there's defense, and it doesn't have to be, 2-on-2 where we don't get many shots. It can be 2-on-1. It could be 3-on-2. It could be 2 balls instead of just 1 ball. But you can find ways. Like the Harding's guys coach came up to me after that clinic and he said, hey, I want you to look at this because we do it 3-on-0. And I know don't hate me, but find a way where I could do this where I could get with defense. I said, absolutely. So we showed him some stuff and he called me a couple of weeks later and says, dude, we're doing that. The kids love it. It's been great. It's helping us get better. And so again, it's trying to find ways to creatively get those reps. And you nailed it on the head. Joe Boylan, years ago, I think he had a viral clip where he's the director of player development at Minnesota Timberwolves. And he said 40 shots with defense and decisions is better than 1,000 shots on a gun or on a shooting machine. And the guy was like, what? You got to be kidding me. He's like, no, I'm not kidding you, because every one of those 40 is a game-like shot. What you did is not a game-like shot. And even if you could teach kids to understand the importance of, like, let's say the gun, for instance, right? Player-led development, they go on a Sunday afternoon, they shoot 500 jump shots. If you could just tell them, hey, look, I want you to shoot 500 different jump shots. The goal is to put the ball in the hole, but I want you to think about, how can I make every shot a little bit differently? Shoot it quicker, shoot it a little bit slower, shoot it from catch high, keep high, shoot it from the hip, shoot it from 1-2, back pedal, shoot it fast, shoot it slow, like shoot it up high, shoot it low at different angles, fades. So again, you can just teach kids the importance of variability, even if you're alone. Like, don't do the same thing over and over. 100 threes caught the exact same way at the same speed from the same angle from all 5 spots, right? It's like, hey, no. That's, even if you can have variability in your individual player-led workout, it's going to be much better than just the block practice. And again, all we're trying to do is help them develop. So if they're going to come to the gym and do it, teach them ways that are going to actually help them improve as players, because it's going to build their confidence. That their variability is going to help them actually make more shots in games, which is going to make them want to go more and work on those things. And so there are always ways to just tweak and say, is there a better way, as a coach to help players?
2 things there. One, when you said like in practice, them just getting that volume shooting up, I think we have to, as coaches, maybe take ourselves a little more serious and value us more. We can help them more than that. They can do that, like anything that they can do on their own. And again, a lot of this talk, just so coaches don't think that I have this all figured out. I'm thinking of things that we did today in our athletic period. We get 43 minutes a day. On my tombstone, I want to be Coach Saman was dripping with urgency. Like that's how we feel about our 43 minutes. No wasted time. But there's probably some things that didn't necessarily really lead to them connecting dots on when they play. So the challenge is to reevaluate constantly. But I don't know if we're taking ourselves that seriously or really showing our players the value that we bring if that's all we're putting them in during this time. Because there's more that we can do. There's more questions that we can answer if we put them in. If we're creative enough, take the 2-on-0, 3-on-0. We're putting in our flow right now. And our flow is our 5 out, which isn't 5 like this. It's 4 out spacing with this guy being the stretch. So it's beautiful because we still get the double gaps that I used to love in 4 out, 1 in, but there's no defender and no paint guy sitting there constantly. So the paint's wide open. Double gaps, triple gaps galore. Putting it in, we're doing a lot of 2-on-0, 3-on-0 right now. Or we did it yesterday. But as soon as I show them the pattern, I'm really treating them like they're idiots. Like, to think that if I put defenders out there, they're just going to start running in circles. No, it's alley, slice. You can choose to take the slice, or you can peek and jab and go back against the grain once he gets there, because then there's a double gap on that side. Why not just let him play through it instead of we did 8 minutes of 2-on-0. And Coach, I believe what you believe. Like, it's not like this is brand new information to me, but
I always ask coaches this question when they talk about 5-on-0 and the patterns and all that. I say, number one, you can constrain the defense. You could say, hey, you're Harlem Globetrotter defense, right? You're the Washington Generals, and you're not allowed to steal. You're not allowed to gamble. You're just staying in front. But I always ask coaches this. When you do shell drill on defense, have you ever done shell drill without the offensive players out there? You think about that yourself. You always have the offensive players out there.
That would look weird if they were.
It's visual perception reps, right? But yet when they do offense, they never have the defense out there. And it's like, please help, because both visual perceptual reps are important. And so if you do your shell drill with offense, why don't we have defensive players out there when you're running through your offense? I mean, it's such a simple concept. And again, it just goes back to traditional way. That's never been done. We don't do it that way. We do it. We have to go through our patterns and go through our stuff. You still have the defense out there giving those reps. You can constrain it where they say, stay in front. It just gives those guys a feel. It gives them And so again, even if it's 2-on-2, 3-on-3, constrain the defense. You're not allowed to play real defense. You're just there for visual perception.
Or it's live at a certain point.
Absolutely.
Allow this pass flow, and then as soon as they touch the paint or whatever, we were working on Brunson's this week because that's really important for our flow. Is if you do get to the paint and you can't rack it and finish, and the defender from the corner doesn't give you a clear kick, instead of picking it up, man, let's stride stop, flip our hips, chill dribble, and then attack back towards the middle. Have that live jump stop in there like Brunson. But so many times it's 1-on-0. And you and I both know, like, that's a hard move, one, to become good at, but more importantly, to stay relaxed in the paint while you're being bumped with 4 defenders bearing down. That's why most guys don't do it. When they get in there, if they have the courage to get in there deep, they pick it up and they do that. And that's not I always tell them, like, guys, that's not the worst thing. Like, you got in there. The goal is to get to a paint touch, but what if you don't lose your power? You can change and then reattack, but it's the poise that you have to have when you are getting bumped and to keep that dribble chill and going. So guided defender at the slot, drop to get downhill. Once you get downhill, the guided defender jumps in front to make sure that he has to, because he doesn't jump in front, just go finish. So he jumps in front, have to flip our hips, and then it's live. Coach, we're working on post defense right there, which is difficult, making sure that we wall up and we hit them with our chest. We're fouling with our lower body. We got our blockouts in there, but it makes it the closest thing to a real game that those guys will feel. But it's so tempting just to teach them the skill in that 1-on-0. So again, you're challenging me, but I did do that. And is that similar? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Guided at parts, live at others?
Well, and so to me, it's reverse that. It's make them go live first and then observe, right? That's if you're saying, hey, maybe we constrain the defense. Well, what if they're really good at it live 3-on-3? And you're like, oh wow, we're watching this with our coach. We go back on our film and like we're actually farther ahead than we thought. So then
that's a good point. Yeah.
But if it's not, and it's too challenging, the defense is always going to be ahead of the offense when you start off, right? So how do we, task decompose? How do we give some constraints to the defense? Coaches are already doing this stuff. And that's what coaches say, I don't know how to do the constraints-led approach. And I say, Coach, think of it this way. When you coach a game, you and your staff are constantly observing what's happening, and then you're manipulating the constraints because you're like, okay, they're doing this. We got to change the way we're doing this. And we got to get this kid in because he's better at going against that. We got to get this shooter in because he's going to be – you're already doing it, but yet in your practices, you'll be this prisoner of the practice plan and just do the same thing over and over again. And it's like you're already doing the constraints-led approach. Just find a way to do it in practice, add defense, and then observe. Is it too hard for the offense? Then let's just try to constrain the defense a little bit. Is it too easy for the offense? Let's find a way to constrain the offense and make them do something different. But again, it's that healthy challenge point, right? But I like to just put them into it. And then it's like observe and say, okay, 4 minutes have went by. This is what we're seeing. This is what they're doing, what they're not doing. And now let's try to tweak and change some things where we can bring out some different behaviors, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I wrote down test. How do we test? How do we test it? If it's in the test in the game is you're successful in a possession or not. You win or you lose, depending on how you view success. But in practice, if it's 1-on-0, 2-on-0, 3-on-0, or how often, again, if saving time, if using time is important, then what can we take out? Where are we at? And I think teachers do that in the classroom. That's what quizzes are for. Hey, I'm going to quiz you. I'm going to see where you're at. And based on these, we'll stay here or we'll move on to something else. You can't really do that if there's no test, if there's no defense forcing decisions, showing areas where we're not confident yet or comfortable yet. I think I missed the boat on that quite a bit.
Yeah, and again, you can take defenders away, right? Even, Chris Oliver at Basketball Immersion will tell you, just add one defender. Just adding one defender will give them a visual, they'll find a solution. But again, I think it's how you test is, are they making good decisions? Are they making fast decisions? And are you getting a good shot? If you can offensively, that is, right? We're trying to find space. We're trying to manipulate space, even if we're trying to take space away. But are they making a good decision? Are they making it fast enough? And are we getting a good shot? Are we getting a better shot? Because again, the result is the result, right? Shot goes up, but if we're getting a good shot, taking that shot, and so again, you can start to kind of talk about those things through your principles of play and through your task representative practice, through your design of your practice. But again, the biggest thing I try to teach coaches is the biggest skill in basketball, decision making and positioning. And how do you ever work on those things if you don't have the visual perception of defense? You can't. And so if you understand just the science of human movement, you're not going to be able to rep it with no defense. And then it translates to when there is defense, right? Because they're all in react.
So guys like Chris Oliver and Alex Sarama, I had both of them on the last couple of years. Sounds very similar, a lot of to what you're saying. So guys like you challenge, I would say, majority of us coaches, and because I felt challenged, and I was kind of coming on here thinking, all right, like me and this guy are super aligned, and that I probably would, I would just agree with everything, and I do, but it's also made me think, like, golly, there's more. Like, there's more that I can do. I'm leaving things off the table. Alex talks about you mentioned on the gun shooting different types of shots. And I follow him, and I've watched some of his videos. I can't remember what CLA.
The constraints-led approach.
Yeah, but he talks about with shooting. He has a video of where, like, it's his team that he had, that academy that they were running in, like, Italy or something, where they would roll the ball to him sometimes. They'd shoot off of 1 foot. They'd spin around. They'd fade away. They'd, every shot had to be different.
It's the science of differential learning. And so
yes,
it's the repetition without the repetition, which is what we talked about, is like how many different ways, right? You want to get the reps, but you understand, and you can do this with your game film, watch your best shooter, right? Every shot that he shoots will be completely different, right? There's no way you can replicate the same shot because the defense is always different. There's no two points in time that are the same. And so, again, differential learning is great. That is some of the things I do, 1-on-0. But again, as soon as we can get defense, whether it's me guided or just different ways, different passing angles, different speeds, it's what the game's gonna call for, right? So we're trying to make the alive movement problems that players can solve. And again, you can decompose the task, right? You can make it simpler, you can make it a little bit more tough, but you're always just observing. And I think that's probably what you're talking about, is this differential learning, which is just repetition without repetition. You're trying to get the reps that you need, but the block reps are not the best way. And it's not to say I love traditional things, right? It's not to say that we can't have some traditional stuff. I'm not against it, but I'm just saying, if like lighter days you want to do, I'm just saying, if you're trying to get the most, because you get very limited time. What'd you say, 42 minutes with your kid?
43 minutes a day.
And if I only get 43 minutes, I'm taking advantage of all 43. There is nothing, that's just me personally. But again, I would limit it because is there a better way, right? Are we involving the science of actually helping players improve? Not to say we can't do the drills that you love. I just tell coach, hey, coach, you've been doing that drill since 1987. Keep doing it. But just try to find a way to add defense to it. Just throw a defender or two in there and see what happens. See if it changes the way things go. And so, again, because you're just involved with the most important skill of basketball. I hate talking to science to coaches because it's like, dude, I'm a basketball coach. I don't want to talk about, again, just like we talked about, every shot is different in the game. So let's try to find a way to make every shot different in the practice.
I don't know. Coach, I think if you don't care about those things, or again, a fixed mindset versus growth mindset,
Harold DeWitt,
and we'd be running 4-man flex right now and struggling to reverse the ball at half court. But I think with that, and the answer may be, and I'm sorry if it is, just discipline, run your program better. But how do you take something like that and not let it be a free-for-all where they're not focused? they're not focused on making shots, which again, I guess you got to teach the why behind it. But, and then that could go back to really, what's your program all about? Are you trying to get better? How do bad habits not come from some of those positions? That, like, so for me, if we want to shoot fast in a game, get our feet set, all this stuff, I guess the variable that we can't always control the game is the pass and maybe what the defenders do. But how does a drill like that not become just, that was a waste of time?
Because again, it goes back to the principles of play. If you have great spacing and you make the right decisions quick, there's no way one player can guard two, right?
Right. But the one where they're shooting on, falling back, spinning around, rolling, off one foot, fading away, catching, shooting high, like, how do you keep that from becoming what? And maybe this is just traditional me saying, like, when you walk in the gym, like, every shot needs to be purposeful. You need to start close. You know, all those things.
Yeah.
Am I hitting a wall?
So again, no. Of course not. Studies show that to develop the best shooters, right? It's variability. How many different ways can they shoot? Can they problem solve? The body's going to self-organize anyway. So when coaches ask that question, it's like, well, when you add defense, they do that anyway, right? They fade. Their footwork's not exactly right. And so, again, having them shoot all these different ways, it's going to increase the variability, which is going to increase, their confidence in games to make shots. But what was the question that you just asked?
Well,
it's like getting away from.
How do I keep that? How do I keep a drill like that? Because I loved it when I watched it, and if I can communicate the why behind this, and Micah Lancaster, who I'm a fan of too, and the moment I usually talk about his stuff with accountability tools, cones, and things like that, it's almost like, I don't know, there's a line drawn in the sand, like, that's not real. We don't do that in the game. Okay, well, never do a 2-ball dribbling drill then either, because that didn't happen in the game. There's still Pistol Pete, all the stuff he did, that didn't happen. But anyway, sorry.
No.
How do I keep that from? I want it to be something that makes them better. I don't want them just to start shooting hook shots. And again, that's why I started with, does that all come back to how disciplined our program is? Like, can I tell them to do things without them taking advantage of, which kids naturally want to do? And then maybe I have to bring them back into why we're doing this. That was my question.
Yeah. So variability, when it comes to differential learning, it's going to be a very small percentage of what you do anyway, right?
Yes.
But you just by telling players, hey, listen, shoot as many different shots as you can shoot when you're by yourself. Don't just go to and I know it's easy, but you want to take your brain off of just autopilot of just getting the reps after the reps. Now, you got a kid that's struggling mentally, wants to go get a good sweat and a workout, do that. But if you want to actually improve your shooting, that's the best way you could do it alone, right? Alone. If you had another player there and you could work on, hey, I'm going to work on shots off the dribble, or you close out to me and I get 2 dribbles max to shoot, whatever. You could build good habits, but that differential variability is just going to help them make more shots. And so, again, it's not the repetition, right? A simple study that was done by free throw shooters, right? If this doesn't sum up differential learning, I don't know what will, but they had 3 different trial groups, right? They had one that shot free throws from the free throw line, 15 feet. They had another group that shot they shot 15 foot anywhere but the free throw line. And they had another group that shot anywhere but from 15 feet. Who do you think the best group shooting free throws was? It was the group that shot anywhere but 15 feet. And because the body, if I can shoot from every different distance, I actually increase my ability to make shots from anywhere, whether it's 15 feet or whether it's 20 feet, because I'm shooting so many different. So variability in shooting, right, any skill, and you can use different size balls. At the higher levels, guys are shooting girls' balls and girls are shooting guys' balls and because again, the body's going to self-organize. That would be a huge no-no, right? Like parents come into my workout time and to be a fit.
You ruined his shot because of the 2 minutes that he had with the girls' ball. You ruined it.
And it's like, well,
so you're telling me though, you think that the 2 to 3 minutes, because I agree with it. That's one drill that I'm focused on. But I feel like it does connect a lot with what you're talking about. If I did 2 to 3 minutes of that a day with the guys, that will help them, because what Flow does a really good job of is it creates finishes at the rim or catch and shoot threes, stationary, not off the move? Will it help them become better catch and shoot shooters because of the differentiated learning in that those 3 minutes?
Absolutely. Anyway, because again, that's what differential learning is like you're shooting shots off the dribble, off the catch, off the shot fake, sidestep, step back, stop, whatever it is. Again, it's just increasing variability in any skill that you do. Defense automatically makes it variable, right? But if you don't have the defense, how can we do it alone or with a guided defender? So that's all it kind of comes back to, is just being able to, have kids shoot shots different ways.
Here's another selling point too, though, and you've mentioned it, I think, a few times, is with 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, even 5-on-4. There's a defensive component to your drill. So instead of having your offensive section of your practice plan, all right, now guys, this is the defensive section. This is where we're really going to find out who, instead of having a difference between those times, you can work on both together. And I would argue that today we did a 4-on-3 shooting drill where I'm in my corners and my alleys, 3 defenders, high pass to start to one player, but then it's live without a dribble, and players learning how to make one of our concepts is make the ball work. We want to make the ball work and find that open 7, which is a wide open jump shot within their range. Defensive players, you're scrambling, you're Xing, you're trying to get deflections, you're seeing a need and you're filling a need. I would say in those 4 minutes, we definitely became better passers, because those dudes are having to, fire passes at tough angles and then also be shot ready, knowing that a guy's flying at him. But we got to take that 7. But I would say those defenders are working way harder than they do in shell drill. So what if we take that out and we do more of these, but just acknowledging with our players too that this is a 2-sided game, fellas. This isn't just one emphasis. You're also getting better here. And then you can add a block out component to it, which is offense. If you get an offensive rebound, it's worth 3 points. Defense, the only way that you get, you can add those constraints or those values to different things. Taking that, like right there, people I think you're right. They get maybe not flustered, but a little bit, they're on edge about this, constraints approach. But you nailed it. We do it already. If rebounding is important to you, instead of saying 5 push-ups for every offensive rebound that they get, give the offense 3 points towards their score. That defensive team, either you'll find out about them that they're not competitive and you can't trust them when it matters most, or you'll find out that they don't want to lose, and they know that giving up offensive rebounds make them lose, give the team more points. I think that's what we're talking about. And maybe coaches do it more than they think, but we can definitely do it more than we do.
Yeah. And that's, you hit it, coaches traditionally we're working on defense this 10 minutes and we got offense and we're going to do pass. Well, this is all of it. Like, that's 2-on-1 shooting. I mean, I could say, hey, we're working on quick decisions and defense is working on scrambling. Well, all I got to say, okay, now I want to work on passing a little bit. Hey, the first person that gets the ball, you must dribble. So now we got a hook pass being thrown. And we're also building the skill of whatever your principles of play are, whether you're anything inside the 3-point line, you're underwater and you can't breathe, or it's floor is lava, or whatever analogy coaches use, is you got to get back outside. So now we're teaching spacing, right? 1 can't guard 2, and you're flying back out to catch the 3, but you're just building skills within game concepts. And so, but you can bring out whatever skill you want to work on. You want to work on screening, ball screen defense, and say, we're going to, you got to work on this. You got to go over, or you can go over or under, or whatever it is. But you can work on anything you want to do just by manipulating constraints, but you can also work on so many different skills at the same time. Shooting off the catch, off the dribble. You give them 1 dribble max or 2 dribbles max, no gold medals, no finishes, so you have to find space to shoot. Like you said, defensively, you're always in the shell drill, but you watch basketball, there's going to be a breakdown. When are you working on your scramble defense? Like, it's great that you work on shell drill, everybody's in position, but when are you working on scramble defense? In transition, when you're working on scramble, I mean, that's all it is, right? That's
all it is.
Earlier, transition is the number, and I always tell coaches, if you don't understand how important transition is, you don't understand basketball. The worst, doesn't matter the league, girls, high school, to the WNBA, to NBA, to Euro League, to FIBA, doesn't matter. The worst transition offense is better and more efficient than the best half-court offense. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the benefits of playing fast, right? And why? But why? That's the thing. But why? Because the defense is not set. It's not. You have a numerical advantage, a spatial advantage, an out of position advantage. It's so randomized, right? But then when we work on defensive transition, everybody sprints back to the paint, and we give the defense the advantage. But it's not like that. And the shell drills all like that. So it's like when you do these 2v1 games or 3v2, or like you just said, 4v3, you're working on scramble defense. You're working on people seeing and reacting and having to fly where the ball goes. And that's what's going to happen in the game anyway. There's going to be an advantage sooner, unless you're like the best defensive team in the world, right? It's going to be a breakdown. It's going to be somebody has to help, somebody gets an advantage, and the dominoes start to fall. The offensive teams can keep those dominoes falling and get a good shot. The defensive teams can get back to neutral, right? They can scramble, and then we're back to neutral. And so, again, that's what it is, right? It's always an offensive and defensive battle, but you can work on those same things at the same time instead of having this siloed approach of I'm working on defense here for 10 minutes, and offense for here for 10 minutes, and finishing here for 10 minutes.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
You know, we mentioned fun and competitive. Like, what a great goal for us is the hour and a half we have after school, 2 hours, for that time to fly by and for our players to have this feeling of, golly, like it was challenging. I'm tired, but I can't wait to come back tomorrow. And I think the more that we can get at, hey, this is what players want. Like, looking back at that's what, kind of going back to the inside step footwork versus drop. If I really think back to when I played, the practices at my high school where I'd peek out the window to see if it was dark yet, because if there's no clock, but I knew once it started getting dark, we were almost done. Like, I don't want that for my players. I want that we're done. We finish on a high note. We celebrate each other. I ask them what celebrations they have, because it's really fun to see what they thought of practice, what they thought of each other. Man, Johnny, I thought you really, really busted it today. Like, you learn a lot about your team when you give them that time. But then when they stay after, they grab the balls. And I don't know, I love the idea of like, hey, before you leave, get this and this and this done. My opinion is I just want them to be there. I want them to want to be in the gym. If they're playing one-on-one, if they're trying to dunk, if they're just sitting on the bleachers and we're talking, like, those are those moments that I think you and I we miss as players. We definitely, for darn sure, don't miss 2-0 closeouts.
No. Again, like, why do we love basketball? Why do kids love basketball? Because it's fun to play.
Yeah.
They go to a practice, and they don't get to play basketball. They do boring, monotonous, fundamental drills. And these kids come to my workouts, and they're like, Coach, and they have a lot of fun because it's opposite of what they're doing in the traditional setting with their coach. And I had a kid the other day I said, show me what you do for ball handling at your high school. I should just show, because I want you to kind of mentor this young kid and to show him something. He goes and does the Don Showalter start, stop, and turn. 2 dribbles, jump, stop, pivot. Like, that's what you're doing at your high school practice to help ball handling? Well, yeah, pivoting. But that's not in-game contact. Like, what's going to happen, like you said, when a guy's guarding and body and you got to pivot this way and you can't pivot that way and you have to bring the ball over the top instead of through there's just so many things that, like, I can make that drill. I can say, hey, you guard him. You're allowed to take 2 or 3 dribbles anywhere you want so that he can't cheat, because you could take 2, but you could take 3. And then you have to pivot 3 times. And then you can dribble wherever you want again. You can go backwards, sideways. You can take 2 or 3. and then you jump stop and you have to pivot 3 times. And defense's job is to try to be all over and get a deflection. And you can dribble anywhere you want on the court, right? Well, I can make that much more task representative in like a game, but I can still work on pivoting. I can work on the exact same things, and I can work on guarding the dribble, right? Trying to stay in front, trying to shake the ball. But there's just so many ways that we can do better as coaches instead of the old, boring, traditional ways. And like you said, in our day, it would be like guards on this end with so-and-so coach, and the bigs are down here. But then in the game, like somebody comes at the pick and roll, and I'm going against a 6'10" dude. So why aren't we doing player development where we're together? Like, hey, it just doesn't make sense the way things have been done, and it still stands the test of time, right? We did it this way. Coach so-and-so did it this way. He won a state title. Coach Krzyzewski did it this way. But it's not that that's bad. It's just, is there a better way to help players improve and get better and develop? And there is. And the reason I know there is because there are scientists that are way smarter than any coaches, and they say this is the best way to do these things.
And for any of the coaches, I think that maybe are like me or have been like me in the past, of that you hear all this stuff you're talking about, it, man, it sounds good and it sounds fun, and I would love to see my players out there firing passes that or they're flying around, and we got defense playing everything. They may think, I'm not creative. I don't know how to make these things that you're talking about. I think a good place to start is your style of play. The offense that you do run, break it down, and just figure out ways where you can get them in. Because I don't think all 5 players moving at the same time is ever good. In fact, I want to use movement sparingly. I want to move to dangerous places or to create a gap, but then I want to get set, and I want them shot ready to, and if they're daring their defense, go help. You know, like they want them to do that. But if we're cutting around or like, what is he, Jackie Moon in semi-pro says, I'm going rover, coach. If they're just going rover, then you're never going to have spacing. But you take those actions that you have and that you know your players are going to have to, and create the games that you're talking about, create the drills and the skill work so that you're not just on a straight line in space for no reason. They're doing things. One coach said that we want our players to feel comfortable and familiar in games. Well, there's only one way to do that, unless you can play 100 games and over time hope they get there. But in most high schools, we don't have that much. I mean, we play 40 here in Texas. That's a lot of games, but practice, we practice way more. We want them to feel offensively or defensively comfortable in what we're trying to achieve. I know I can do this, and familiar. I've been here before. Like, I've done this before. The only way to achieve that, though, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and watching your game film and seeing like little slices of the game, and then how can I make a small-sided game, and then get my guys, a lot more comfortable in those problem-solving, and a lot of coaches will call and say, Coach, I love small-sided games, but it's not game-like, it's not representative because they have all this space in 3-on-3. And it's like, Coach, you control the playing boundaries, though. All you have to say is, like, we're playing from here.
Yeah.
The imaginary wall, if you come over here, it's out of bounds. I'm standing right here. If anybody comes past me, it's out of bounds. Make them play in the spaces you want to make them play in. But like you said, there are coaches that go to clinics, right? And they see this awesome drill that so-and-so did. Mike Neighbors did this amazing drill, and they go back and they do this drill, and it's like, you don't even play that way. Like,
that's right.
You don't even play fast in transition, so why are you working on that drill? That's a great drill, but that's because Mike Neighbors plays that way, right? He's smart, but it's the curse of the clinic, right? We put all this stuff in, and it's like, why would I even do that drill? You don't even do that in the game. It's not even your offensive philosophy or defensive philosophy. And so, again, it's watching game film, reverse engineering, and saying, okay, here's what's happened the most in our offense. And like you said, sometimes people come to my workouts and their parents will just scream out and yell, move, you got to move. Stop. Hey.
You stay there.
His defender has helped all the way to the paint. Why would he move?
Don't be creepy. Don't be creepy.
Face. That's right. Like, he's just trying to, that's PG.
One of our, yeah. Don't be creepy. Kids typically don't want to be told that they're creepy in general. So Absolutely. It's a good way to get at that insecurity of, I don't want to be creepy. But you see it, Man, great story with Joe Crispin, which offense wins. One of the best books I've ever read. And his whole let the game teach the game, playing fast. But I had him on. That was a really fun talk. But he's telling this story about he's with the Lakers, and he didn't get to play with them very long. But Kobe has the ball on the opposite elbow. He's in the left corner, and Robert Ory's in the stretch up above him. And Kobe's catching it. He's just reading. He's waiting to see how he's guarded and what other guys do. And Joe starts to creep out of the corner towards Robert Ory. And Robert Ory says, "Where are you going?" Just in this moment of just authenticity, he goes, "I don't know. I'm just moving." I think that happens a ton. We're just moving. And then so when you watch, like, coaches get upset of why guys aren't more aggressive with the ball, trying to take their guy or attack gaps. I think most of the players have to do what they see. If they see a space that's closing with a defender and a teammate moving towards them, they're not going to be as aggressive. They're not going to take it, but then they're getting yelled at to do it. And then that turns into the turnover and the single gap, but they're mad at that player, but it's really that guy that's taking away. Like you want to move away. You want to have gravity, right? You want to have gravity that be such a good shooter and be so far that defender is pulled toward you so that it opens up space. But you nailed it, though, with maybe all of this is hard to hear because I would imagine if, like many coaches, want control of who takes the shot, when they take the shot, and where they take the shot, there is an idea that if you're going to run and gun and play in transition, I truly don't know every possession when it's live where the shot's coming from. But that's part of the fun, though, too, where creativity, more buy-in to skill work, because each of them, if they're open and it's a 7, they have to take it. If they're able to, they feel like they can beat their defender, they're comfortable with that, and there's a gap they can go. But I think their style of play, if you're playing in transition and you're not calling plays, this is an idea that you really need to take a good look at.
Yeah, because again, the most two important skills in basketball, right, is decision-making and positioning. So it's like what you're talking about. How are you working on those two skills with no defenses? So if you're talking about that, when to stay and when to hold and when to cut and when to move in space, you don't have the defense. You don't get to do those things. And there's a shared cognition, right? It's oh, man, I thought he was going back door. Oh, he faked like he was going, and then I threw out of bounds. Well, again, how are we working on that shared cognition? If we're doing it 2 on 3 on up, it's impossible to work on. So there's so many components by just adding defense, that you can do. Again, like kids that come to my work, especially the young kids, coaches just, for whatever reason in the youth, I think it's just like pass and cut. So I have to break habits of why are you passing and cutting? The person that's guarding you is 7 feet off of you. Like, why don't you just face away or go and get the ball or do something? But you have to break the habits of just pass, cut. And
definitely don't basket cut and get your head under the rim. The only place where that ever works is 5-on-0. Because or you're playing a team that sucks. And if you're playing a team that sucks, then anything works, really. You probably don't have to scramble at all because you're superior. If one can guard one without any type of help being needed, well, then that's just going to be a good night. And offensively, if that works, but you're right on the money, sharp cuts away, spacing away, creating more room for your teammates. One of the things that I like, because we do play in transition, so flow is what I tell our guys, when leather touches our fingertips, we're flowing. Live ball, or make or miss, whatever, we're going to flow. Don't look over at me. Our goal is to get the best shot as fast as possible. So race, right? The PGC term. We got to race. How do we know we're racing? Defense is uncomfortable. They're having to sprint back. We get the corners first. We have our alleys, and then the fifth guy finds a stretch. But one of the things I've seen is one concept we have is the open player must receive the ball. It's a super simple idea, but coaches are all, he's wide open, pass it. How do you not see that? I'm convinced that seeing open is harder than we make it sound, or it seems to us on the sideline. I think when you're handling it, racing, scanning defenders, it's easy to miss things that are right out there in front of you. So one of the best ways is take your 5-on-0 transition drill where You get it out of the net. Point guard gets it easily and gets to up it to that player for a wide open three or a layup. And then the next guy goes and you circle all 5 through in a mid-half and we're fast.
Yeah.
I've done it. But put 2 defenders out there, and one at the half court and one at the free throw line, and circle, because we're positionless. I don't care who takes it out, and I don't care who brings it up. The only question I ask them, Mark Cassio said this, the only question I ask them is, who doesn't want to be a point guard? Tell me the first day of practice, who's not comfortable being a point guard? Bringing it up. And those guys that raise their hand, they can't be the one to catch the inbound. And if they rebound it, they have to up it really quick to somebody close. So once you get that established and that ball comes in, then instantly, who's more dangerous than me? If it's the guy right down in front of me, I have to up it right there, but I have to read that defender. But if there's only 2 of them out there, there's 5 of us, fellas. We're going to find a 7, an 8, or not preferably be an 8. 8's a contested layup, but a 7, a wide open jump shot, or a wide open layup, which is a 9. We're going to find that against a 5-on-2. And, Coach, this is what happens every year when we start this. We turn it over or we shoot a 6, a contested jump shot. Guys, listen, there's 2 of them. I don't want you to go slow, but through going fast, I want you to be decisive, find who's dangerous, figure out that we say 0.5 seconds, 0 seconds, move it, make the ball work. And then when they get comfortable, we're just getting open threes and offensive rebounds for finishes, add a 3rd. And then add a 4th, and realize, like, who are your playmakers? Who are the guys that can really see that advantage and make it a bigger one, cash in or transfer? But to me, take your style of play and put them in those kind of situations.
Yeah. If you're a big push it up the floor, one of the best things, I just did this with Fayetteville High School the last few weeks, but you can play it 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, but just have 3 simple rules. Number 1, there's no out of bounds. Right, because again, you're just trying to work about transition. So you say, number 1, there's no out of bounds. Number 2, there's no fouls. Now, we're not trying to foul, right? But we're not calling fouls. Like if you start fouling just to kind of kill the drill, then I'm just going to sub you out. Like we're not trying to play basketball, but we're not calling any fouls. Because again, the whole emphasis is to play as fast as we can possibly play. And then the last one is there's no inbounds. So whether they miss or it goes through the net, we're right back up going the other way. If you have those 3 simple rules in transition games, whether it's 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, and then you can start to get into what you talked about. Any pitch ahead for a 3 or a pitch ahead for a layup's worth 4 points or whatever you want, points. So you're just trying to, again, constraints where you're trying to bring out some different, opportunities. And then you could even say time, like once the ball crosses half court, you got 6 seconds or however you want to do it with your team. And you'd be amazed just by those simple, small-sided games, how much it's better. You'll start bringing out different skills of the pitch aheads and all that.
And this is where we get back to culture, too, is giving them the opportunities to learn and make mistakes. Gannon Baker said, celebrate the try. I think one of the biggest things I'm doing early on, even within our gameplay, because our goal is to shoot 30 to 43s a game. It doesn't always happen that way, but if our pace is the way we want, that's typically where it lands. I don't care about the makes. We were 6 for 44 a few years ago, but I was really happy with about 42 of them, those attempts. So that's a win. But early on, I think what will stunt the creativity or the learning is if we are critical when the mistakes happen. Teach, yes. Give advice, ask questions, ask what they like, get to where you understand what they see. And so we can get, it's with shot selection. Instead of that's a bad shot. Hey, rate that shot. That was a 6. Yeah. Why do you think you took a 6? And not in a demeaning way. Well, I don't know. I think I thought I was more open. Well, if he's close to you, what could you do? Man, I could lift and I could attack. Like, or you had a one, but teach through that. And I think what you get over time is them making less the mistakes, doing more the things that you want them to see. But if you hammer them hard at the beginning, searching for perfection.
Yeah. What is Gannon? Gannon and I go way back too, but what does Gannon say?
Celebrate the try.
Yeah. So I say celebrate the decision, not the outcome. I just have, like, anytime we make a great decision was to shoot because you had space. If you airball it, you airball it, right? Like, celebrate the decision, not the outcome. So again, it's that same thing as we got to celebrate the good decisions, because the more good decisions we make, obviously, as we get better throughout the year with our practice design and practice, we're going to start, right? We're going to be on the right. If we're making the good decisions and not so caught up in the outcome, if you're so outcome based, right, that's just not a great culture. It's the day to day, and it's hard to build that if you're just always worried about the outcome. The outcome's going to take care of itself if you're every day the process of developing and getting better. So
you nailed it, man. The first part of, in my opinion, the first part of what really defines your culture, I don't care what words you have on a wall or what's on a t-shirt or the posters you have. What really defines it is how you deal with shot selection and how you deal with losing. Those two things are really, really, if you wanted to test where your culture is, how you deal with it personally, but then how do your players also deal with it? One of the big things for me is I've outlawed or I've done away with post-game speeches. It's been years since I've given one. Last game of the year, we cry and I thank them, and I'm losing it not because of it's over, more because I don't get to coach them anymore, that finality of that team. And so that's the one. But man, Coach, that has saved me so many times from saying something I'll regret. I don't even really know what I saw, what I just witnessed, because you and I both know sometimes we can watch game film and go into it thinking we were horrible. And you know what? Guys, we're pretty darn close. Couple plays, couple better spacing, not just knockdown shots. I think that's weak. But, because take it. If we make it, great. But other times, I thought we looked really good tonight. And golly, there's a lot of room for improvement. So I think we watch the film, but I love watching you play. Ask for celebrations, even after a loss. Ask them to celebrate each other, because man, a great way to turn bad feelings to, hey, we're on the right track, is through gratitude and celebration, and then get them out of there in less than 3 minutes so they can eat and see their friends. But culture, I don't care what, excellence, humility, toughness, enthusiasm. I love those words. We try to live those out every day. Doesn't matter a thing if I'm killing them when they miss and I'm killing them when we lose.
Yeah, the words, and Mike Neighbors does that same thing, and I've talked to coaches about that before. I think that's where I first heard it from years ago, was from him. Is just like, I'm not doing it, because, like you said, it's never as good or as bad as you think it is when you go back and watch the film, and you're going to end up saying something. We're emotional beings, right? So it's going to be emotional. So instead of just saying, hey, look, let's just get with our friends and our families and enjoy. Let's get back to practice tomorrow. We can talk about things, let everybody cool. And then after you watch the film, even if it was as bad as you thought it was, right, you've had time to let that emotions, and you know what you want to say. You got a plan going in, and it kind of helps things. But I think that's so important, And I'm so against any slogans, even though I know on Twitter I'm motivational. I feel like the habits of everybody in your program, that's what's going to change the culture. It's not your sayings. I mean, and I know it's $1 billion industry, right, of the slogans and the culture talks and the core values, but core values don't change behavior. That's 100% fact, right? Like the human brain, there's a culture to everything already as it is. And leaders don't necessarily, like, you can nudge and we can try to help shape and do that, but we kind of overestimate our job as leaders too, as far as culture goes. There's going to be a culture whether it's a leader or not. That's been going on for, millions of years. There's going to be a culture. And so I just think that, especially if you're trying to change one, being able to come in and then ask the questions, find out what's going on. Because your culture, you're in Texas with football, you're a basketball coach. Like, that culture's going to be different than up here. They don't care much about football up here where I live. And where I was from in Missouri, didn't care about it much at all. And so every single place, doesn't even matter. I mean, even in the same state, towns it's going to be a different culture. And so I'm not about the slogans. I'm about trying to build and change habits of the people consistently over time. It takes time. It didn't just happen. Everybody wants to just act like, okay, we got our slogans and here's our practice plan. We're going to say our quote and we're going to get up and then we got great culture. And that's just
culture on 3.
It's so hard. It's so time, because the way people think already, it's hard to change the way people think.
Yeah.
So, but I did write something down that I said, just to kind of begin that culture talk, is like, who plus why plus where equals what and how. And so, you know, who are we coaching, right? Because if I'm coaching a sixth grade girl and I'm coaching Zach Levine in a pure sweat workout, that's two different things, right? So why are they playing and why are we coaching? Because that's a big thing, right? It's a transactional, it's transformational. Where are we coaching at is going to equal what we do and how we coach.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of them, come in, I got my notebook and I'm going to tell the superintendent what I'm going to do to change this culture. It's like, that's great. That worked wherever you were, but that's not, it's always, easier to find out and talk to the players that were there, talk to the people that are there. What do you love? What was great? What do you not like? And then start to shape and basically as a leader, just try to build and change habits. That's why Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books, because it's actually things that can help change habits. And if you don't change habits, a lot of people think we're going to talk about culture and the habits will change. It's not how it works. It's a flip of that. You got to change that eventually over time, as collectively as a group will change the culture. And that's the easiest way I could sum it up, with something real quick. But, obviously culture is so dynamic and so deep. It's not something you could talk about, a couple, little conversations. I mean, it's just, it's so much deeper than people make it out to be. And I saw a thing the other day where Alan Stein and Alan and I go way back too, but he talked to UConn. He said, culture is got to be like this. And it's like, that's not how it works. Culture is like this, my man. I don't care where you're at. I don't care where you are. If you think culture is something you put in these core values and everybody holds each other.
He said that?
It was like this. It's like, that's not how it works. And so, and I love Alan, but it's like, hey, we know for a fact you could study it.
I'm a big fan too. I'm a big fan too. He did a stronger team at our school years ago. I brought him in for that. Had him on here. The story I put together for my years at Baylor, because I was there through 3 years of bliss and then the scandal tragedy in my senior years with Coach Drew. And so all of that, and he was one of the people that I've known him for a long time. Love what he does to teach. I mean, golly, talk about one-liners and zingers like that. That dude can just rattle them off. So I'm a little surprised with this.
No, that's exactly how it is. And so I do a lot of culture talks, like around, and I like Fayetteville's doing this. I don't know if you ever heard of this or not, but Fayetteville, the high school I'm working at, I asked them, they had a day that they were doing the 5 H's. Have you ever heard of the 5 H's? The lady that did it, but she basically, and again, it's just about learning each other. And so what it is you're able to practice leadership qualities, but you're also able to just find out about your team members. And so the 5 H's, you got history, heroes, heartaches, highlights, and hopes.
Yes, I have heard of that. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about your personal history, your heroes. And so just ways to kind of, again, I think it's cliche stuff, but anytime you can learn about the way, because I think now, culture is knowledge, right? So if you can learn why people think the way they think, you learn some stuff about them, it's going to actually help the culture, eventually. So kind of going through my little stuff here. We talked about transformational and transactional stuff. The thing that you mentioned, Drew, at Pure Sweat, we did SWOT analysis. So it's like a business model of weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you can do that individually. You can do it as a team. You can do it as a coaching staff. I think that's always a great thing, again, because I think it helps self-awareness. And so if you can help self-awareness, you can build better habits. Because to me, it's culture is habits. It's the practices, the procedures, the routines, and the habits. And if you don't change those things, you're not going to change the culture. And so that's your job as a leader, is to kind of steer your people towards, developing better habits. Because like in anything, you're not going to be able to, you can go off motivation, you can go off slogans, but you're going to gain all that weight back after you lost it, right? And then some. Until you can consistently change how you eat, what time you get up, and the movement you did, you're not going to change. You're not changing anything. Just a small. And that's how motivation is. That's why I'm not big on motivation. I mean, I want to be motivational. I want to have energy. I want you to feel good. I want it, but it's intrinsic. And the only way you can build intrinsic is by changing your habits and then seeing those results start to slowly, and it builds momentum, and you can continue those habits. And so that SWOT analysis is good. And it's not just, Drew just did it more on the player development aspect, but it's also laziness, mindset, leadership skills, inability to get outside the comfort zone, off the court behavior, lack of being vocal, whatever it is. But we talked about earlier too, is players will complain about not having those things, but then they never get to practice those things or be in some situations where they can work on those things.
Coach, let me take you through the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. First thing that pops in your head, just blurt it out. We'll get to know you a little bit better, and then I'll get you out of here. So first one, favorite ice cream flavor?
Rocky Road.
That's good.
Anything with chocolate and nuts.
All right. Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry. That's easy.
Yeah. Favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero?
You can always pass on these. I've noticed this is the one that I thought everybody was into Marvel like I am. When you have a couple coaches look at you like,
say Superman. Growing up early days, my dad always had Superman on, so
it's fair. I mean, to me, he's the best one. Captain Marvel, some people said is more powerful, but anyway, I'm not gonna get all that. Top 3 dinner guests that you like to have across any time period.
Oh man. Well, I've lost my dad to cancer a few years ago, so I'm a big guy. I would go my grandpa, my grandma, and my father.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Best basketball movie of all time?
Hoop Dreams for me. I love Hoop Dreams.
Good one, Coach. Hardly anybody says that. That's good.
And that's I'm not a big and I do I like Hoosiers, and I'm sure there's different ones, but Glory Road, Coach Carter.
Well, but that Hoop Dreams was real.
I like the real one. I like the real. There's another part of the game. It's up in Seattle, Washington. So a girls. It's
Heart
documentary movie. That would be my second favorite movie, probably.
Heart of the Game.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It just kind of goes around, shows the local Seattle, Washington coaches. But those are my 2 favorites. And then Arthur Agee, and he played at Arkansas State where I played at. And so
nice.
And he was way before my time.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
In that movie, so not Arthur, but the other guy, the one that he ended up having knee problems, right? I think. Do you remember? It was like the playoff game, and the coach either didn't start him or didn't play him or something because there's some type of, maybe he was late or something.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? In a situation where, and I don't remember all the backstory to it, what all had happened, but consequences towards one player's actions that affect the entire team. What are your thoughts on things like that?
Well, so I feel like, again, you could have that vision as the leader, right? But that needs to be something that's talked about with the team. Is like your culture cancers or your culture breakers or your culture, whatever word you want to use, is what do we do if this happens? And now make sure, because when we come back to this, and then we can give some scenarios, because kids will be like, oh, they can't play. Okay, we're playing for this. We're getting ready to go to state. We're getting ready. And Gatling goes down with this, and he can't. He's 5 minutes later. We not playing him. Oh, so we gotta. So
that's
again,
good.
Need to be kind of talked about ahead of time, but again, it's always going to be circumstantial, right? We're the head coach, he's playing whatever it's going to be.
What was it? Coach Calipari said he was always the last one on the bus, no matter what. He was. I like that. When Coach K said he doesn't have a lot of rules because he doesn't want to be put in a box. I thought that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think Jim Boeheim or Calhoun somebody said that years ago too. Hey, I wait till my assistant coach calls me and goes, hey, or comes in and says, hey, coach, everybody's here. Okay. And I've been at the meeting.
Texting or talking?
Talking. I love to talk. Now, again, there are times you got to text, especially with kids. I would much rather, anytime I drive, I try to call somebody, coach, just friend, family, just say, hey.
And that's a good idea. Instead of listening to stuff or, cowboy talk radio right now, listen to how miserable it is to be a Cowboys fan. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
It's a shot clock, not even a question.
Yeah, that was I thought so. It was a bad question.
In Missouri, in high school, there's no shot clock, but Missouri, I think, is starting to try it next year, possibly. Again, I'm right up here where you're in Oklahoma and you're in Missouri, if you're just a few miles here or there. So these guys in Arkansas have been doing it a couple of years. They'll go play in Missouri and be like, there's no shot clock. It's so, terrible. But you're talking about skill and getting better. I mean, there's so much more possessions, and kids, kids get used to making quicker decisions and playing,
less control.
Yeah, you get better. You get
Yeah.
way more sessions. I mean, if you're doing that every practice, right, playing fast, it'd be much better. But
Favorite holiday?
Christmas. Just always love Christmas. That's a big time family time. As basketball coaches, we can't not love. We get 2 weeks off sometimes, a week and a half off, whatever.
That's right. This will be a good one. What book would you give someone?
Well, so you said it earlier. Mindset, Carol Dweck is probably my favorite book. This growth mindset. Atomic Habits is really good. And then, if you're talking about the culture, disrupting corporate culture, James White, really, really, really good. Those 3 are good for basketball coaches.
Nice. 2 more. Well, a favorite place to travel?
Hawaii. I was actually born in Hawaii, and so
Nice.
I got to go there and play. We played Boston College in Georgia, and Portland State when I was in college, and that's my favorite place to go.
That's my wife and I's our favorite place. Every time we're there and we're talking to the Uber, who usually is a guy that used to live over here and has moved there, we always ask questions like, okay, how'd you do it? When'd you do it? And so we would jokingly say we're just going to be there one time and never come back. We check all the high schools while we're there, and it's incredible. Last one, in basketball as a player, who is the GOAT?
Michael Jordan. Not even close. Michael Jordan. It always will be.
What's funny is for all the talk out there, people, you hear that a lot of people maybe think LeBron or Kobe. I think now I have a pretty large sample size here. After 200 or some of these episodes, it is 95% Michael Jordan. It's not really a conversation.
I'm sure age has a little bit to do with it, but still,
a little.
Yeah, there's just no way. And the guy took, 2 years off. I think he would have won 8 or 9 in a row.
You know what they need to do is a documentary on the Wizards' years.
Yeah.
There's a short YouTube video on it, like about 25 minutes, where showed really how great he still was and what he did for that team before his arthritis in his knees really started keeping him out, and he was hurt a little bit, but he was still darn good, and they completely flipped in that one season.
Yeah. I just can't imagine him in today's game where there's no hand checking and physical. He was such a skilled competitor. I just can't imagine.
Yes.
The aggressive attacking mentality of him.
Not that he wasn't great before, obviously, because Bobby Knight said it when the Olympic team, he's the best player he's ever seen.
Yeah.
But did the Pistons and the Celtics and the Knicks create him, make him even more of what he became if he's in a different era, still competitive, still crazy athletic? But what if he doesn't have that edge to him, that killer instinct where, you see in The Last Dance? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what's crazy too is he even had that when he was winning, and that's what's so amazing about it is you just win so many in a row, it almost becomes there's nothing else for me to achieve here. This is
go play baseball for a year and a half.
When you win, and I know that had to do with it, but when you win,
yes, yeah.
I'll step away for a couple of years.
Coach, this was awesome, man. You gave me over 2 hours of your time. And what I said, I truly believe is I appreciate you, the vision that you have for training and helping players and how you challenge people, but you do it in a respectful way of not calling me or anybody idiots for not knowing what we don't know or being stuck maybe in our old ways, but just challenge us to rethink some things. This was awesome, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Coach. I love doing this, and we can do it again anytime you want. So we can get into culture deeper or whatever you want to do. So.
Let's do this, Coach. If you'll agree to a part 2 right now, I think we will get into culture. We didn't really get into analytics much and confidence a little bit here and there, but I do think there's way more meat on the bone that we can get to if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah. I'll commit to part 2 anytime. Yes, sir.
Let's go. Hey, JonBeckBasketball.com. If guys want to learn more about you, maybe reach out to you. Obviously on Twitter, you have a great presence there. What's a good way for them to do that?
Yeah. So Twitter or X is at Coach Jon Beck.
Yeah.
And then email is coachjohnbeck@gmail. So it's pretty across the board. JonBeckBasketball.com, at Coach Jon Beck Gmail. And
do you have some of these small-sided or constraint games that you like to do at your academies? Do you have some of that material available? If a coach say, hey, will you send me a few things to try out? Anything like that?
Yeah. But again, it's not. I don't video anything because I don't. When I go into my workouts, it's like you. There's no talk. It's just like it's pretty purposeful. There, I don't have my phone ever. I know a lot of these trainers like to video kids, but I'm more of like just being present. So I don't have that. I have set up the iPad a few times over in the corner and just have some things like that. But I usually show a lot of that stuff at clinics that I go and speak at. Again, it's not about the small-sided game. It's about observing what's taking place or kind of what I want to work on and trying to find ways to kind of manipulate the constraints.
Yeah.
And again, that's different for every coach, because every coach has different philosophy and different kids. And so that's more of the importance is like what you talked about earlier is you're already doing it. You just got to find a way to do it in your practices and try to challenge your players. So, Coach, I know you can't do it's Friday night, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Bology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Bology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Bology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.